All right, Naomi and team, are we good? We want to kick off? Perfect. All right, just another reminder for folks who've just joined, just make sure your line is muted. And thanks for being here tonight. Good evening, everybody. I'm Melanie Lewis Dickerson. I'm the president of the Junior League of Denver, and I'm thrilled to welcome all of you to our October general meeting. And I want to start off by saying a huge thank you to our GM committee, our Public Policy Council, and all of our guest speakers that are joining us tonight for this important conversation. Give them and give yourselves all a virtual Zoom round of applause. Thank you all for the hard work. Yes, clap all around the hard work that has gone into making tonight a meaningful experience for our members. I want to start out this evening with a practice that was recommended by our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and that is the practice of sharing a land acknowledgement. So, what is a land acknowledgement? Some of you might be asking that question. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples as traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. So now I'll share with you all the statement that was written by our DEI committee on behalf of the Junior League of Denver. Throughout history, over 100 different tribal nations have occupied the lands we now know as the state of Colorado. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, the Junior League of Denver acknowledges that we are gathered today on the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute, and Sioux. This area was also the site of trade, hunting, gathering, and healing for numerous other Native tribes. We recognize the Indigenous peoples as original stewards of this land, and we honor with gratitude the descendant communities of these tribes. And a big thank you to our DEI committee for guiding us in this practice and learning. Lastly, before I turn it over to our council, I want to do a quick housekeeping. So we want to make sure that all of you, you're here because you want to be here and you're here because you want to learn, but you're also maybe here because you want to get credit for being at the general meeting. And we want to make sure that we can track attendees and assign you credit. So if you could do us a favor and make sure you change your name on Zoom to align with your name in JLD, so however you show up on our member rosters. You can do that by going, if you click on your picture or your box where your name is and hover over that, there'll be 3 little dots at the top of the top right corner of that screen. If you right click there, it'll give you the option to rename. Or if you go to the participants list, you can right click on your name and then it'll say more, I think. Is that right? Yep, under more. And then it'll also give you the option there to rename. So if you could rename yourselves, our GM committee will go through and pull that list and be able to assign credit. If you're not able to do that because of how you're joining, Jody's also gonna pop her email in the chat box and you can shoot an email over and we'll make sure you get credit through that avenue as well. So with that, it is my distinct pleasure to turn it over to our VP of Public Policy, Naomi Amaha-Golnick.
Thank you, Melanie, and good evening, everyone. I'm so excited to see participants as they are trickling in. As Melanie stated, my name is Naomi Amaha-Golnick, and I have the honor of serving as the Junior League of Denver's Public Policy Council VP. So for background, in case you didn't know, the Junior League of Denver is one of the few leagues in the country with the Public Policy Council. Our council works tirelessly to influence and shape policy at the state legislature, focusing on policies that impact our mission, our members, and our community partners. We also provide training opportunities and really strive to empower our members to engage as advocates in their communities. Voting is such a powerful tool to advocate and speak up, so we've designed this general meeting to serve as a resource for you all as you prepare to vote. Lastly, I do want to share that the Junior League of Denver is a nonpartisan organization. We focus truly on advocating for issues that align again with the league's mission and take great care to act in the best interests of the league and the communities that we serve. So I hope that is helpful for you all. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of what the format is for the public policy components of this general meeting. We're first going to start, and we are so thrilled to have Representative Julie McCluskey join us, as we want to recognize her for her leadership in the legislature, but also as our Junior League of Denver 2020 Legislator of the Year. We're then going to move into a panel discussion to talk about mail-in voting in the 2020 election with two leaders who are working tirelessly to ensure that the election in Denver, elections across Colorado and across the country are accessible and equitable for all. And then we're going to wrap up this general meeting, specifically the public policy components, with a training in a moment to ensure you all have the tools and resources that you need to turn in your ballots before Election Day or on Election Day. So with that, I am going to turn things over to Kristen Ditch, our step-up chair for the events committee of our council, to walk us through and help us celebrate Julie as our legislator of the year.
Thanks, Naomi. So every spring, I should say, the Junior League of Denver Public Policy Council selects a legislator of the year. And the events committee is tasked with selecting a member of the Colorado State Legislature who's made a considerable contribution during that legislative session that ties back to our league's mission and focus. Because the legislative session was shortened due to COVID, we're honoring our 2020 Legislator of the Year tonight. And we are so happy to have Representative Julie McCluskey here and as our 2020 Legislator of the Year. As the representative for District 21, which encompasses 5 central Colorado counties, Representative McCluskey was regularly referenced in our bi-monthly council policy meetings. She sponsored 2 bills that the Junior League of Denver took an interest in, HB 1006, Early Childhood Mental Health Consultants, and HB 1016, Increased Quality in Early Childhood Education Programs. Representative McCluskey, thank you so much for joining us tonight and congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristen. I am delighted and honored to be here and truly thrilled to be a part of your general meeting and to have so many active, engaged, and caring adults talking tonight about not only our election, but ways to stay active and involved. And thank you for this honor. It means a great deal.
Yes, it's so great to have you here. And we're going to do a couple questions in sort of a fireside chat format. So I was hoping you could begin with a quick introduction to yourself. Could you tell our members a little bit about yourself and what brought you into a career in public service?
Oh, thank you. I do live up in the most beautiful district in all of Colorado, and the 5 counties I represent are the heart of our Rocky Mountains. 5 counties: Summit, Lake Pitkin, Gunnison, and Delta. I have 10 ski resorts in my district, and I have spent the last 13 years in public education. Had the tremendous honor of working for Lieutenant Governor Joe Garcia back in the 2011, the very start of Hickenlooper's administration. And that's when I first met the Junior League of Denver. The beauty of the setup under Governor Hickenlooper is that Lieutenant Governor Joe Garcia oversaw all of the education initiatives in the state, including early childhood. So while I was working down at the Capitol, I really became immersed and passionate about the impacts that early childhood education, high quality care and learning experiences have for our children, and really set them off on the right foot. I hadn't intended to run for office, but after years in public education and my time down at the Capitol, I kind of got the buzz and felt some excitement about being able to serve my communities, serve working families in ways that I feel makes a difference, whether that's fighting for high quality education and funding for our schools, or improving healthcare access and fighting climate change. There's so much to be done in Colorado, but I will tell you, this has been the best job of my life. And I'm hoping on November 3rd, I get a chance to be rehired by the constituents in my district and get back to work.
That's so great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. In January of this year, you were appointed to serve on the very prestigious Joint Budget Committee. But in preparing for our conversation, I noticed that you were a chemistry major. How does a chemistry undergrad find themselves on the Joint Budget Committee and offering so many bills that are focused on tax and finance policy?
I am so glad you did your homework and found that out about me. I'm very proud of my chemistry degree and actually thought I would end up either in pre-med or in education, science education. And instead, my life took a different path. My husband and I, right out of college, moved to Vail just to have some fun and to ski and to play and we ended up falling in love with our mountain communities in the state. And I ended up spending my career in a couple of different arenas, of course, ending about 20 years ago in Summit County in public education. I think all of us go through changes in our life, and it's those experiences that help develop us and make us better human beings. I know my time in a chemistry lab certainly made me a better and more critical thinker. And I think I bring that every single day to my position in the legislature. I also think having a chemistry background has helped with some of the conversations I've had in agriculture and certainly around climate change and energy in this state. So, it's one of the beauties of Colorado's legislature that it's a citizen legislature, that we all come with a different background, different experiences. And I'm very proud of that degree. So thanks for noticing it, Kristen.
Yeah, I thought it was so interesting. Always great to see women in the STEM field, but wonderful that you have that perspective to offer in the legislature. Yeah, and you represent District 61, which I had to look up on a map, admittedly, and it spans essentially from Hotchkiss up to Silverthorne. Like you said, there are a number of ski resorts that are in that area, just to give people a sense of where you are in the state. And we're gathering virtually here tonight across the Denver metro area. Colorado is a very diverse place, mixing rural and urban constituencies. How does this factor into how you legislate and best represent the people that have elected you?
That is such a big question, Kristen. I want to say a couple of my tenets as a legislature, what I value. Certainly, it is important to remember that once you're elected to office, you are the representation for the people in the communities back home, but you have a responsibility to think on behalf of all Coloradans, making sure that we're thinking about policy decisions in ways that are good for everyone. And while some people may benefit more than others with a particular path we take in policy, it is ever so important that we not forget we represent the whole state. I'm very proud of the Western Slope Coalition of legislators, both senators and representatives, Democrats and Republicans. We have really made it part of our work together to focus on problem solving, not partisanship. And I'm proud that most of the bills that I have brought forward, one that I would mention that is specific to early childhood special districts, I carried with Senator Bob Rankin, a Republican from the Carbondale area. And we were able to, talk to our urban counterparts about the values of creating an early childhood special district, not just in rural Colorado, but for our urban and Front Range areas as well. And I think it certainly is a challenge to keep those differences in mind, but it is our responsibility. And I'm with a district as large as mine, it takes me 4 hours to get from one side to the other. It is important to be making those connections and helping people understand why, we make some of the decisions we do.
Yeah, 4 hours is quite extensive.
It's a lot.
Yeah, you definitely get your miles in. So another question for you. We hosted a wine and ballots event last week for our membership and members of our community, where we talked about the 11 statewide ballot initiatives. Amendments or otherwise, what is on the 2020 ballot that's most interesting to you and why?
I want to highlight a couple. The very first and most important one for me is Proposition EE. I carried the bill that referred Proposition EE to the ballot. And, this is really a win-win for Colorado. It will help tackle the public health crisis we have with teen vaping while creating tax revenue for rural school districts right now during this crisis. And then in 3 years, we'll be able to take all of those dollars and invest them in universal preschool. And I'm just very proud of this bill, the work that we've done, the many early childhood advocates who've been working so hard to make universal preschool a reality in Colorado. So very proud of Proposition EE, vote yes. And I also, there's 11 statewide measures on the ballot. And that's a lot in any given year. But I would highlight Amendment B, the repeal of Gallagher. It is critically important to rural Colorado that we say yes to Amendment B, that we roll back the Gallagher Amendment, which without Tabor might serve us all very well. But because of Tabor has created this downward pressure on residential assessment rates. And now our county governments, our school districts, our fire districts, our libraries and hospitals, many different special districts in the state will be impacted and fairly severely. School districts alone will lose $250 million to $500 million if we are unable to repeal Gallagher. So I would highlight those two as probably the nearest and dearest to my heart and the most important for Colorado at this time.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on those. And if anyone's interested in watching, we'll have more details in our training in a moment, but do feel free to go back and watch that recording of that event if you'd like the bipartisan perspective of those initiatives in particular. So one last question for you, Representative McCluskey. Our Legislator of the Year award was announced for you and given to you during the COVID-19 pandemic at the beginning of the pandemic. And we gave you the option to have your award come in the form of a donation in your name. And you selected these two charities, JDRF and Help Colorado. Could you please tell us a little bit about these organizations and why you selected them?
Thank you, Kristen. And let me say again, when you just said it out loud, 2020 Legislator of the Year, I was very excited. So thank you again. What an honor this is. You know, in this moment, we are facing the most challenging situation. The pandemic has created such hardship for so many families. The unemployment rate, while it is coming back down, at this moment has certainly been higher than Colorado has seen in decades. And it is such an important moment for all of us to give to helping Colorado and helping Coloradans. So doing my part was one way that I could help those who are really in need. And then the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. My husband is a type 1 diabetic. My focus on early childhood and what it has meant to our family to have to deal with diabetes our whole life, it's been very challenging. And for young children, it's so much harder. Families really struggle with that. And I think JDRF is on the very precipice of breakthroughs with true cures for diabetes. And they are a passion of mine, and I'm just so grateful to the Junior League for investing in these two very worthwhile causes. Thank you. It means a great deal to me and my family.
Yeah, we were very excited to have you be willing to let your award go towards something to help others in such a tough time. So thank you for willing to do that and for naming two great organizations. In general, thank you so much for being here tonight with us. Thank you for the work that you've done on behalf of groups that are a focus of our organization and the work that I'm sure you'll continue to do. As a member of the House, being up for re-election and knowing that November 3rd is a very big day for you, we'll let you get back to the campaign trail, but thank you so much for being here and congratulations again.
Oh, thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you for sharing a few minutes with me. And I look forward to seeing everyone when we're back under the Gold Dome and back at work. So thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Naomi.
Thank you, Kristen. And again, thank you, Representative McCluskey, for all that you do. All right, so we're super excited. We're going to move into a discussion talking about mail-in voting in the 2020 election. And I first want to start with introductions of our two speakers. All right, so tonight we are so excited to have Amber McReynolds. Amber is one of the country's leading experts in election administration and policy and co-author of the book, When Women Vote. Amber currently serves as the CEO of National Vote at Home Institute and Coalition and is the former director of elections for the city and county of Denver. During her time as an elections official, she transformed the elections divisions into a national and international award-winning office. And just recently, Time.com featured Amber for her leadership across the country in helping states and communities make that pivot to vote by mail. We're also super excited to have the City and County of Denver's Clerk and Recorder, Paul Lopez. As the Clerk and Recorder for his hometown, Paul Lopez is a passionate advocate for empowering all Denverites to engage in the civic process. Prior to serving as the third ever elected Clerk and Recorder for the City and County of Denver, Paul has served as the youngest elected City Council member for 3 terms, representing his home district, District 3, which represents Denver's West Side neighborhoods. If you'd ask him, Clerk Lopez's proudest moment almost always happens when he empowers his dedicated staff and community leaders to lead. And you see this so much in the community engagement approach that his office is taking to ensure that voters are registered and getting their ballots. Paul and Amber, so excited to have you here.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
All right. Well, we're going to start. So the way that this will work is we're going to have some moderated questions that I'm going to pose to each of our speakers, and then some I'll pose to both. And then we want to turn it over to our audience questions. So I encourage you all, as you're hearing the discussion, plop those questions into the chat. When we get to that portion of the agenda, I'm going to turn things over to our VP-elect of the Public Policy Council, Lindsay Johnson, to help in facilitating that questions. All right. So to start, and I'm going to start with Clerk Lopez. What has Denver done to increase or enhance ballot security and availability for voters in the COVID-19 environment?
Well, I mean, thank you for having me on. It's really cool. It's good to see you, Naomi. And it's good to see you in your, in Spanish, you would say, or in your mero mole, right? You're doing a great job. And thank you, everybody, for having us on. Right, we are in the middle of a pandemic, but the good thing is that the model in which we operate from and what we are able to do is actually pandemic proof. It's resilience to threats, it's resilience from foreign interference, it's resilient to interference from weather, right, like a bomb cyclone, or even public health pandemics, which what we're in right now. I mean, first and foremost, all our ballots they're hand marked paper ballots. Every single ballot is a cast paper ballot. There's a lot of safeguards that prevent any fake ballots or anything like that from being counted. I know you're hearing a lot of misinformation. The misinformation that's out there and the disinformation that's out there is actually probably the biggest challenge, right? Because we want folks to be able to turn to us for the facts. And the matter of the fact is that your ballot that you get in Colorado, it's safe, it's secure, and the process is absolutely transparent. And so for COVID-19 in the middle of this pandemic, we are making sure that folks have access to be able to vote in one of our 38 drop boxes around the city. We added 10, especially in areas where we really needed to make sure that there was an equitable access for folks, no matter what side of town you live on. If you can still pop it in the mail all the way to the 26th. The 26th is the actual last day that you should put your ballot in the mail. Then you just take it to a drop box. And if you do decide to come in person, all of our election judges and staff maintain that 6-foot distance from each other. Everything's sanitized all the way down to the pen, right? And if you really look at it, the last election that we had was our state primary on June 30th. And in that state primary, 99% of the people who voted in Denver didn't vote in person. They used the drop box or mail. And those that did come in person, it was healthy. There was no lines. It was smooth. And that's because of the measures that we have in place. And that's why we say that this democracy is pandemic proof. The way we vote is pandemic proof. So, and the other thing is that this year, you're going to be able to use our curbside ballot service. So just hit us up ahead of time, 311 option 8, or just hit us up at denvervotes.org/voterinfo, and we will do curbside service for you.
Thank you. All right, our next question, and I definitely want to pose these to both, but would love to hear from Amber. What are the top myths and misconceptions about mail balloting systems or ballot fraud that you're hearing?
It's so funny that that was the second question, because I just put up our Mythbuster document on this topic in the chat. So feel free to share that. But a couple of things that are really happening nationally, and this sort of started. This reform has never really been partisan. So we have passed expansions of this in states like Utah and Nebraska, and North Dakota has expanded this. Georgia, red states have been expanding this reform until someone started tweeting this year about vote by mail. And so now there is a lot of misinformation that's floating around about the process overall, the trust or distrust of the post office, the security of ballot drop boxes, whether or not the signatures are checked, whether or not the ballots actually get counted before Election Day, all of that. So our communications team has created a Mythbusters kind of briefing doc. So I did share that in the chat, and that's available on our website. So feel free to share that around on your networks. And then, like, the best recommendations that we have is that, first and foremost, we know that local election officials, so offices like Clerk Lopez's, are the most trusted source of information regarding the voting process. Our organization just ran 2 different national polls on this topic, and we found that voters actually trust the local election official in states at more than 10 points higher than even the Secretary of State or the governor. And the reason for that is they're seen as nonpartisan technocrats that run the process and don't lean one way or another in terms of partisan politics. So rely on the local election officials. What I've been really encouraging folks to do to help in this kind of final 2 weeks is to follow your local clerk or election offices Twitter handles, or your other Facebook profiles or their Instagrams, and share their stories, because they're constantly putting out the right and correct information. And the more that we can expand that, the better and easier it is to push back on misinformation. So that's really important as we see these myths and we see these sort of inaccurate stories about the process, especially a process that has worked exceedingly well in Colorado and that voters really benefit from across the spectrum.
Thank you so much, Amber, and thank you for sharing that resource. We definitely can do our part to help in everyone's efforts to ensure that there's facts out there about this process. Clerk Lopez, is there anything else you'd like to add or share, expand upon?
The first thing, and a lot of what Amber's saying is absolutely the case, right? A lot of the misinformation out there is social media. It is, folks that are even retweeting information that's not true. Yeah. And the aim out there, let's just be honest, the aim out there is to spook folks from voting, right? To scare people from participating, knowing that this is an option. And it's so unfortunate that we have to deal with that, right? But sometimes people look at at their social media and they think what they see is absolutely true, right? And it's 100% correct that folks, if they have questions, should go to their county clerk's office. Yeah. Right? To make sure that they have access to that info. A lot of that info is posted for us. I mean, you can go to denvervotes.org/voter info here in Denver, in the Mile High City. But if you live in other counties, you can just hit that up, and all that information is there. The best, the best messengers are you all, is the public, and to be able to educate each other, assure each other. At the end of the day, the way that we vote here in Colorado is not new. Mm-hmm. We've had practice for 7 years, and there's been a lot of fine tuning to the point where you saw in June where people are voting mostly in person. I mean, people are not voting in person for the most part, right? And in a pandemic, we don't want folks to be able to feel like they're risking their health just to be able to exercise their right to vote. And we're doing that in so many different languages in every corner of the city.
Thank you. And you actually helped prompt our next question, is really looking at how Colorado has evolved. And Amber, would love to start with you, and then Clerk Lopez would love to hear your perspectives on how have we in Colorado evolved our mail balloting systems over time that could be a lesson learned for other states? What are the pitfalls and speed bumps that we've had to overcome to get to this point?
Yeah, well, I started running elections way back in 2005 in Denver, and I was a staffer at the time, and I was responsible for the vote by mail area of the office when I started to work there. And so I had military voters and that process under my domain. And within a year of me being on staff, Denver actually had a significant election problem. There were really long lines at in-person voting. And primarily that was a failure of leadership, a failure of governance, a failure of the technical team. And so the in-person voting created 5 and 6 hour lines. Many people were disenfranchised. And the only part of the process that functioned the way that the way that it should have was the vote by mail piece. And I, being a staffer at the time, you know, the office, a lot of people got fired out of that. The city actually referred, Mayor Hickenlooper at the time and City Council referred a ballot issue to the ballot come January 2007 to change the office to be an elected clerk along with a deputy and director of elections under the city charter. And that structure is really what catapulted Denver to being a more accountable office, being more effective, being better planners, and really securing the budget that was needed to run elections. And so the Clerk O'Malley was the first clerk. I became deputy under her brilliant leadership right when she started, and we transformed the office. We became a more innovative office, really led, and sort of throughout that process, vote by mail continued to increase. And I think that vote by mail started to increase, and that was the choice of voters significantly across Colorado, because Coloradans kind of got tired of the old way of standing in line at a polling place that you were assigned to on one day. And they really wanted the time and the choice to choose when they wanted to fill out their ballot, when they could turn it in, all of that. So by 2012, we saw about 75% of Coloradans on average across the state, some counties were above 80%, that were choosing to vote by mail. And so with that kind of incline of vote by mail requests over that period of time, we also learned a lot of lessons. And so, that time at 2005, 2006, 2007 is actually like the same stage at a lot of states that are in now are experiencing. And so we kind of knew what to avoid. And like, I have the experience to sort of identify those pitfalls that a lot of other states are kind of falling into now. And the growth in Colorado was really driven by voters. It wasn't driven by politicians. In fact, most of the premise of the model and the ideas for it and what really drove the legislation was local election directors and a few clerks around the state that didn't approach it in a partisan way. We looked at it as, how do we put voters first? How do we design a process that works for them? And we addressed all of the issues that we could and that we knew of because of data-driven metrics. And what I like to talk about, data-driven policymaking, is really what it was about. And that catapulted Colorado to being one of the top states for turnout, for engagement, for access, for accessibility, and it's pandemic proof. And Colorado continues to lead the country on all aspects of this because of that, kind of approach that happened that was frankly led by local technocrats that run the process.
Thank you, Amber. Clerk Lopez, would love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, no, everything, it continues to evolve. And as, society evolves and how people participate, right? And I think to a quote that really kind of guides me, right, in this role, and that is something that Cesar Chavez said when he was organizing in the community service organization, right, just doing voter registration. And this is, after the Great Depression, and getting into these areas, these rural areas, these farming towns of California, and the same kind of thing happened here and all over the Southwest U.S., where you just had these huge voter registration drives. And he said something that really still rings true to me now, and that is, we don't seek a perfect political system. What we seek is perfect political participation. Participation is key, and it is absolutely key. And you want a system that is easy for folks to participate, right? Free from intimidation, free from obstruction, free from the politics. Folks have a right to vote, no matter where you live, and no matter what zip code or what side of the train tracks you come from. right? I started when I was 13 years old doing that, doing voter registration and GOTV. And I remember 2005, I remember 2006, right? But I also remember, as difficult as it was for us to see those kind of lines and see that environment, I know that we would uptick anytime we had a presence in the community. We would tick up that participation, and it has to be sustained over the years. You can't have like a one-time thing, right? One-time project, and that's what you see with a lot of our partners that do this kind of work. Is they're only funded for a while and then they disappear. So if you don't keep building that culture of participation, and that's what it is, it's a culture of participation. You want folks to know when the municipal election is going to happen in Denver. You want folks to know that, when there's going to be an election, aside from a presidential election. When you measure this during a presidential election, all your numbers are going to be pretty high. But when you measure it in some of these more local elections, like the municipal election, you don't have that same kind of participation and turnout. Now, when you see that, you start seeing these gaps around the city of where people do not participate, where turnout is low. And then you overlay that with another map of eligible but unregistered voters, right? So these are folks who potentially can be voters. And right now in Denver, we tipped the scale for the first time in history. We have over 500,000 registered voters. And that's a big deal in Denver, right? If you think of the population in Denver compared to that, that's huge, right? And so you want to make sure that narrative exists, both registration and participation, building that culture of participation, no matter if you're in Hilltop or if you're in Via Park or if you're down in Harvey Park or even Curtis Park. You want that to be the same. You want that participation rate to be equalized, even in a place like Swansea that has constant construction and a highway going through it, right? So in what we've been doing, so some of the cool things that come out of like my elections director now, Jocelyn, really took something that was being done in King County and looked at the opportunity to bring that here. And that is when you're thinking about, okay, there's mistrust. What happens behind those closed doors? Oh, Denver elections is all boarded up right now, and we don't want nobody breaking our windows. So we had to do that. But the answer to that transparency was, why don't we just live stream our processing rooms? So now you can get on and see what's going on in those processing rooms. And it really puts people at ease. It's like, oh, well, that doesn't look nefarious, right? And then the other thing too is that you kind of want to take it back to the old school, right? So you want to roll up those sleeves and you want to get out into neighborhoods and take the knowledge that we have here in the institution and make sure everybody understands it so that you level the playing field. So we have an outreach team for the first time ever that are going out and doing that, doing engagement. Every neighborhood that we can get to, from, right now, the DU campus all the way to Montbello. They were in Montbello the other day. They were in projects in Westridge, in West Colfax, right? They're on the east side, on East Colfax, with Burmese refugees. So, and you can just see the excitement, and that really is the heart of it. So you pair that with the model that we have, and you have something that is truly something that's going to build towards perfect political participation. And then you think of folks who cannot vote, right? You think of folks who are new Americans, who are just as every bit as concerned about the issues as voters are. You have folks who are not eligible to vote yet, like our young people, our students that are super hyped up about it, right? That want to fill out your ballot for you and things like that. You got to tell them no, but you want to build that energy up. You want a place for them. And so having them be able to participate in any way that they can. And I always tell folks, I told the Vietnamese community the other day when we had a town hall, put bo pho, right? Go vote. A sign on the corner. And you know what? There's nothing to stop you from doing that. And it is civic participation. Even though you may not be able to vote, you have an impact and a place.
Thank you, Clerk Lopez. Honestly, the two of you are warming my heart on this cold evening, because the two P's that keep coming up: participation and people. And that's truly what our elections should be about. And, for many folks, it took a long time for them to get the right and the ability to vote. So the work that you both are leading is so critical in that space, and keeping it really centered around people and the ability and making that possible and showing them that the power that they can have as a voter is just phenomenal. So our last question, as we think about our moderated pace, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, is what does the future look like in the landscape of elections, especially given all of the lessons learned? So Amber, to start, I'd love to hear your perspective on what the future looks like when we think about elections.
Sure. Well, I mean, I definitely think that the model that we built in Colorado is a model that's expanding rapidly across the country. Going into this year, there were 5 states that were conducting their elections like we do in Colorado, and that was namely Washington, Oregon, Utah, Hawaii, and Colorado. And now there are 9 states plus DC. So now there are 40 jurisdictions across the country, including California, which is the largest state by far. And we also now have over 87 million mail ballot requests. So including the 9 plus DC, 10 states that 10 jurisdictions that are mailing ballots out automatically, we have close to 90 million people that have chosen to vote this way. And that includes Montana, which is 97% vote by mail now, and Arizona over 80%. 12 counties in Nebraska are all vote by mail, and most of North Dakota is. So there's been a significant expansion. We've been leading that work over the last 2.5 years. Really proud that we were able to get as much done as we have in states like Hawaii and Vermont, New Jersey have all expanded it, Virginia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Florida. I mean, we have had an impact in 38 states this year in terms of expanding these options for voters. We've also been involved in litigation. I've been an expert witness now in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and there's a couple other pending cases now. And so we have been fighting to expand this option, and voters are taking advantage of it. So first off, we're going to have the highest turnout we've ever had in a presidential election. We are easily on pace for that now. Over 50 million people now, as of tonight, have already cast ballots in this election. In states like Texas, they have already voted 66% of the voter count they had in 2016, which is being led by Harris County right now, which also expanded vote by mail significantly. So the country and the voters of this country are choosing this method of voting more so than any other. And we're going to continue to see that increase. And what's great about it is the trend, the upward trend to vote by mail also matches the upward trend of turnout. And so with this election, it will be the highest turnout we've ever had. Likely by election day, but for the first time in our history, the most votes will have been cast prior to November 3rd. That's what we expect. That's what all the trends show now. And so I think that sets us on a path for long-term reform. My organization, we have an aggressive federal plan. We've been lobbying at the federal level for the past 2 years. We've also been lobbying in multiple states and had great success. We passed legislation in Nevada and many other states recently, even close to the election. So we're going to continue this. We're going to continue to export the amazing model that we designed in Colorado and that has proven to work so effectively in Colorado. And then I think that, the reason that I like to say it's vote at home is because we also need to have options that are accessible to vote at home. You shouldn't have to go in person to access a touch screen if you're blind. You shouldn't have to worry about getting an alternate language that might not just be Spanish that comes on the paper ballot mailed to you, but you should have other access. So we have to continue to advance and explore technologies that move this along. And that's something else that we're focused on at Vote at Home, to expand these additional options for folks so that everyone has the most opportunity that they can to participate in the election.
Clerk Lopez, anything else you'd like to touch on around the future of elections?
Yeah, obviously technology is a big deal, and making sure that folks have access to the best practices around the country from so many different counties and states, and that they learn from each other. right? That's a big deal. A lot of what you see is those best practices being put into place, right? The other thing I would add is, let's be real, we need political accountability. Voting is the most basic, one of the most basic civil rights that we should all be fighting for. Access to the ballot box, unabridged, right? Like without obstacles. People should be able to vote in this democracy. And it's sad that we have to talk about it now like this and still fight for that basic right for folks to not have to wait in line 7 hours to cast a ballot, right? In Harris County, the one ballot box, and I organized out there, I was organizing janitors out there, and it's huge. One ballot box. Could you imagine that in Denver? So these are folks who are making these decisions knowing that they're, ripping people off of their access to the ballot. And has nothing to do with party, has nothing to do with, and it shouldn't have anything to do with party, shouldn't have anything to do with politics. It is if we call ourselves a democracy in this country, we have to fight for that. And not just for us, but for others, right? And so a lot of it is making sure that there is accountability, that there is political will to be able to set the stage for county clerks and elections divisions and departments around the country to be able to utilize these tools. A lot of what doesn't exist is the political framework or the legal framework for that to happen. That's where, that participation matters, right? And it is a privilege, and we are very privileged here. And, so first thing is exercise that privilege, vote. If you haven't voted, please vote. Turn that in early, because those folks that are in there, these aren't elves that are flown in overnight, right? Processing on these ballots. These are people. These are your neighbors, your grandparents, your family members, your friends that are in there just every single day making it work. Our voter services team, I think of them right now, that when I left to come here so I can access the internet here, not freeze and the lights turn off over there, they're still there. They were still there working. Right, so make sure you vote. It is a privilege here, and we have to create an opportunity so other folks can have the same kind of access that we do, and that starts with you voting, right? And remember, 3 ways, right? Drop it in a ballot box. There's a whole bunch of them. Even if you're in another county, you can put your ballot in that box, and it'll get to us, and we will do that with them. We exchange them, right? You can come in person if you must. Know that you don't have to do this, and with the infections that are taking place, all of those infection rates that are going up, know that it is a real thing, and standing in line and stuff like that reduces. It increases that risk, and you don't want to do that, especially when you have the ballot. Just go put it in the box. You can still put it in the mail all the way to the 26th. That's the last day for you to be able to do it, and for us to be able to get it. Curbside ballot, contactless. That's something that we're doing. That's something that other counties are doing. You can get online at denvervotes.org and sign up. You can give us a call as well too. The other thing is that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that is smooth and that it continues to operate in a way that other people can easily replicate around the country, and that's what needs to happen. So I know Amber's done a lot of work to make sure that people have access and to kind of spread that word, right? As like that apostle out there doing it, right? And I think that's super important. But you all take advantage of that privilege that you have, right? And fight for everybody else's access to do that as well too.
Members, I think we've heard our charge. Truly, we all have an opportunity to have an impact in this election. So thank you both for just your detailed perspectives. And I am going to turn things over to Lindsay to talk through and share some of the questions we have from our members.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you again, both of you, for joining us and for that great set of moderated questions, those answers. So a couple of questions. First one to kick things off. What is happening to protect the ability to cast your ballot in wildfire evacuation areas? Paul, I suppose that question's for you.
Yeah, so I actually just got off the phone with our Secretary of State, who's actually from Estes Park, and they are working. See, here's the cool thing. So they're working to create that plan for folks who are evacuated. Know that if you have your ballots, and if you know folks who have their ballots and took it with them, that they don't have to go back to their county to vote. They can actually fill out their ballots and put it in a box in a neighboring county or wherever that they're temporarily housed, right? If they didn't bring their ballot, it's on the kitchen table in there, and they're thinking, oh crap, everything's burning, my pictures, everything, including my ballot. They can still request a replacement ballot, and they can contact their county to be able to do that. And like I said, in Denver, we're fortunate that we, it's sad seeing that plume of smoke, especially those of us from here know how precious that area is. And it tears me up inside to see that happen. That's a completely different issue, but for folks, you can contact, and you can, if you help spread this word, have them contact their clerk and recorder. And if they cannot contact that clerk and recorder because that office is shut down or whatever, they can contact the Secretary of State's office, or they can even contact the neighboring county. And us clerks, we work together. We will work together to make sure that folks have that right to vote.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, next question. Amber, this might be one more for you to start off on, but do any other states have a ballot trace system like we have in Colorado?
Yes, actually, that's a great question. So Denver was the pioneering office for this 10 years ago. So the first ballot tracking system ever in the country was designed in Denver, Colorado by our staff when I was there at the time. And that was the first time that had ever been created. And so when I left Denver a few years ago, this is one of the things that we have been at the National Vote at Home Institute. This has been one of our top recommendations for states to do. So I was able to help, not only did I help California with their legal changes to their laws, but we also helped them, and I helped them a lot this year, get their ballot tracking system statewide implemented. They were by far the biggest state. They rolled it out earlier this year. Virginia as a state rolled out theirs last year. They were kind of the first statewide implementation. And then we worked with Nevada and Georgia and North Carolina as well to roll out statewide solutions in those states. And then many states have kind of had this homegrown, you can look it up on the website sort of tool for a while. And then finally, Colorado actually rolled it out as a state. Denver has had it for 10 years, and then a few counties have had it at the county level. And finally, the state actually just rolled it out recently, finally. So they weren't the first state to do it, but they followed a few other states that did this year. So it's really great, actually. And what we actually now, I think over 40 states, or actually 46 states have at least have the ability for you to look it up on the website that the state operates. And then those states I mentioned do the proactive messaging and marketing of emails and all of that out through the ballot trace system, with California being very much the largest, which is super great. And we know also from some polling that we did that ballot tracking in and of itself increases accountability and trust in the process significantly for voters. So they have much more confidence in voting by mail by having that type of system that gives them those assurances as to where it is, just like tracking a package.
No, I love to do that. Okay, another question for either of you. This is an interesting question. So do we find that voters will fill out their entire ballot more of the time whenever they are doing vote by mail versus voting in person?
They certainly have more time to do it. They don't, I mean, as they have the luxury of being able to go through it without feeling pressured that there's a line behind them, right? And so that's what's really important. So that's one of the things. Other thing is also too, sometimes it also depends on what's on the ballot and how fired up people are, right? And it's that cultural kind of, it's that cultural participation, right? It's also making sure that folks have the resources, because some of these questions are very technical, and it totally sucks. I hate reading in all caps, and I think it's so it's so not voter centric, right? You read in all caps, you completely get intimidated and turned off by that, and you lose your place. So there's a lot of different factors. There's some things that can change, something like that. But yeah, there's, it's so much easier, and folks take more time when they're able to sit down at their own leisure to be able to do it.
Okay, cool.
I mean, Amber, you probably
yeah.
have something else
Amber, anything to add there?
add to that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is we actually studied this as well, and we found that vote by mail actually increases down ballot races. So whether it be judges or state rep races or anything that would be considered down ballot local races, ballot issues, we actually did a study in Utah and found between a 5 to 7 point turnout increase when you use vote by mail. And we actually think that with longer ballots like Denver's, that's probably more like double that, mainly because when you go in person, and you probably have all seen this, it takes 2 hours to read the ballot and fill it out. But can you imagine doing that kind of ballot in person? And can you imagine what the lines would look like doing that kind of ballot in person? So this is another, like, in addition to the increase and just being more informed as a voter, because you can look it up on the computer if you're not sure of an issue. We also know that it actually saves, it would actually potentially reduce lines significantly in some of these states that you see 10 and 11-hour lines, right? So part of the reason for that is it takes a long time to vote. When ballots are really long, it takes a long time to vote. So this is a huge benefit that we have in Colorado, and another benefit of the reform overall.
Hey, Lindsay, may I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Common misconception is that people think their ballots are thrown out if they don't vote the entire ballot. If there's something that you don't feel comfortable with or not well read up on, and you skip, that's your prerogative. But your ballot won't be thrown out for that. We've been getting a lot of those questions. I want to
That's a really good point.
inoculate.
That's a really good point. Mythbusters here tonight. Okay, so question, what recommendations do you have for resources to inform voters about their election day decisions if they haven't already cast their ballot? Paul or Amber on this?
First off, your county clerk's website. That's super important, right? So whatever county you are in, that is the trusted information source #1. It is nonpartisan, and it is ran by the people, right? And it's not run by parties. I mean, culturally, we ran into folks that think that the election is like the election somewhere else where it's run by different parties and stuff like that. No, this is a public entity. It was, made independent for a reason. And it is ran, in this country, the government is the people. And so it's trusted information. That should be your county clerk's office, #1. 2, there are just different other sites for judges. I mean, you can go on, their ratings and stuff like that. A lot of people have no idea where to look up for judges. They can't campaign for themselves or anything like that. So, there's that. And, do your research. There's a lot of different things that you can do to research candidates, to whatever. We also have an interactive sample ballot that our staff had produced on the Denver website that you can go out and kind of take a look at as well too. It's pretty cool. But always stop at your county clerk's website, #1.
Amber, did you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the ability to be able to research and all of that is really helpful with this type of model. Certainly go to the local election official's office in your state or city or county. And then I think that, as Paul said, one of the common misconceptions is that the local offices are more partisan, or it's like, I feel like people equate campaigns with the conduct of elections, and they're completely 2 different industries. Like, they're not at all the same thing. And that's also, the United States is pretty unique actually in modern. Thank you, Ken. I'm sorry. The United States is pretty unique in the modern democracy group of countries, because we actually have a lot of partisan politics infused in our election process. And what I mean by that is, at the state level, it's partisan secretaries of state in about half the states. Some states have commissions, some states have appointments where they're cabinet offices. So it varies, but it usually is tied to partisan politics in some way because it's either running on a partisan ballot or it's being appointed by someone who did. And then the second big piece is that 50 state legislative bodies and Congress decide what the rules of engagement are, even though they're all the players in the game. So if you look at like a Canadian model, or if you look at more of the other kind of modern democracies, they've tried to make their elections more independent and free from that kind of partisan world of policy making and partisan politics. So, I think the pandemic, interestingly enough, has exposed that more so as an issue this year than we've ever seen before. And the primary reason for that is Congress didn't give jurisdictions enough money they needed. A lot of state legislatures and governors are using their jobs in pretty political ways to restrict voting access. And so the only way really to address that kind of fundamental core issue is to think about governance in a different way. How do we govern elections, make sure there's accountability while also putting a check on the partisan politics that have kind of found their way into this? Because just like in a baseball game or in a football game, we don't want the players making the calls and calling balls and strikes. We want independent people, kind of doing that and making sure that process happens the way it should. And that's frankly why local officials are seen as the most trusted sources, because they're not on partisan ballots. They're not kind of connected to some of the partisan officials in the same way that, say, secretaries of state are or other officials.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, a couple of questions around Colorado being a model state, both in terms of what we can do as citizens to advocate for our system, and then, within our system, how can we be a good model? So how can we be a model state for other states to guide them towards effective mail ballots, both from a citizen level and both from a, the government level? Whoever wants to take that one first.
I would just say, look, share your experience, tag Denver Votes and tag Denver Elections, like share your voting experience across your platforms, because voters in other states, like we need them to hear that they don't have to wait in a 6-hour, 7-hour, 11-hour line to vote. And, I think just people continuing to hear that positive story will help it spread even further. And then, like I said, the local election offices are the most trusted sources. Share what Denver Elections is putting out on their Instagram and their Facebook and their Twitter accounts, and share that across your networks, because that's the best way to make those offices and their information go viral over all of the misinformation and disinformation that might be floating around. So share that info, thank election officials that are working tirelessly to make this happen, and support the process in that way, while also encouraging everyone to vote, and vote early, vote way ahead of November 3rd. Do it today if you can, and that takes the pressure off of Paul and his team at the Denver Elections Office.
Ditto to a lot of that. People can't demand what they don't know exists, and it's the same thing when we say you can't be what you can't see, right? And so when it's out there, when people see it and they see that they don't have that opportunity, it becomes something. It becomes an issue, and an issue that they should fight for, right? The Voting Rights Act was not passed out of the kindness out of people's hearts. It took good organizing. It took sacrifice. Sadly, it took bloodshed, even going all the way back in the day, right? With women having the right to vote for the first time. We're in the century, right? And I think it didn't come easy. It didn't, you have to demand that. You have to have that account. You got a big power around it, and you got to demand that, and you got to do it on a national scale, right? And so, and that's a lot. That's a lot. I put a lot of heavy weight on somebody's shoulder. So don't have an anxiety attack, as I often do when I think about this in my head, right? With personal responsibility. Just know that we all have a part in it, and whatever you can do. And it doesn't matter if you're an engineer, if you're a zookeeper, or a teacher, or you work in government. Everybody has a role and a responsibility to demand those kind of equal rights for everybody, right? And that's basically, you know, I think the demands for democracy in this point in time in our country, right? It is the thing that we have to fight for, is that access to the ballot. It is such an injustice that somebody has to stand in line for 7 hours, right? Just to be able to vote when I can walk down the street and go drop it off in a ballot box, right? And it takes people from both sides of the house to demand that, right? We have to see this as something that is not a red or a blue thing. And unfortunately, it's being cast like that. This is an American thing, and this is a democratic thing, right? And I think we have to hold true to that in every way or method or energy that you can spend to do that, even if it's just a simple retweet of one of our trusted information sources and posts. That's helpful. It's helpful.
Okay, awesome. Those are really great. And we're getting a lot of great comments. It's not red or blue, it's right or wrong. Really, really good comments coming through. Okay, we have 2 more questions in about 8 minutes. So we're going to try to get through these. What are the biggest mistakes that a voter can make that might cause their ballot to be void, and what can you do to fix any errors? Or if you get a ballot if you didn't get a ballot in the mail, how do you make sure that you can get one and vote this November?
One, make sure you put it in the ballot. Make sure you put it in the ballot and you sign that ballot. And you don't think too hard about your signature. Just sign it naturally. Sign it naturally and get it in before the deadline. The sooner the better, right? You know, I've seen people race all the way to the ballot box and it is closed because it's like, you know, 7:30, 8 o'clock. No, 7 o'clock is 7 o'clock on the last day to vote, November 3rd. There is no 7:01. There is 7 o'clock, and make sure you sign that ballot.
So here's what I would say, because this is kind of my spiel on every time I talk to some national reporter. Every state, and frankly, and I've been working on mine tonight with the kids, but Denver has the best design, instructions, all of that in the country. So you also benefit from the fact that there's some awesome creative people at the Denver Elections Office, namely Stu Clubb and Jimmy Flanagan, that make all of this happen. But the biggest thing is your instructions. And the other great thing is the I voted sticker has been a staple in the Denver packet for a long period of time. So that's super fun. But you know, follow these instructions. Everything you need to do and follow is in these instructions. On the ballot itself, one of the things that people do, fill in the oval. Like if it says fill in the oval, and in Colorado, all of the ballots are ovals because it's all the same system except for one county, but still ovals. And if it says use black or blue ink, use black or blue ink. Don't use purple, don't use pink, don't use glitter pens, don't use highlighters, none of that. Use black or blue ink. And then sign. So they tell you exactly where to sign it. A little X marks the spot. And then turn it in by November 3rd. A lot of states have expanded to accept postmark. Colorado does not accept postmark. It's got to be in the hands of the clerks by November 3rd, or in any box. So even if you're in Denver and you live in Arapahoe, drop it in a Denver box because Clerk Lopez's office will take care of it. But get it in by November 3rd. If you see stuff from other states, California accepts postmark plus 17 days. That's not Colorado at all. So just make sure it's in by November 3rd. And simple, pretty simple instructions, but fill in the oval, don't circle names, don't, you know, all of that. And tell people that you know not to do that either, because it just takes them more time to process. So,
and we've got a testimonial here from Naomi, who had her ballot returned once because she signed her name incorrectly. So she was able to remediate that quickly because she voted early. So that's great. Okay.
And I promise, Paul, I'm going to bring this in soon. I
I'm
won't
kind of,
wait.
you know, Amber, I'm kind of now I'm stressed now that I see you with that ballot.
No, it's coming in.
No, I know you're busy.
Definitely
know
have
she's
to
busy.
vote by mail.
I fill it out with my kids every time. So Clara started reading through it and they were like, they helped me read it. It takes us forever, a few days.
And that's that culture of participation, right? Because
Right.
they
They
want
know how to
see
complete
that.
the ballot.
Right there. And
Okay.
you're busy and you need that ballot as a prop, right?
I do.
Definitely. Okay, as a closing question, we've got 5 minutes left. What are your, so you guys have worked nonstop up until the election day night. What are your election night traditions with your family and friends?
I get to see my family and friends on election night.
You actually get to see them? No,
I don't. So I pace around and debate whether I should start taking up, chain smoking again. No, I don't. Before this, I would actually vote my ballot with my grandmother, because my grandmother, she just remembered so much, right? And it was so cool to be able to go through it with her. And because she lived through all this history, right? She's no longer with us, but I was one of the best. I can still smell her Salem cigarette burning with a cup of coffee, like Sailor's coffee, Folgers coffee. That was, man, I remember that, right? Nowadays, as your clerk, I am walking around high-fiving our folks. I can't high-five folks now, but at least pumping up the troops, walking around, making sure folks have water, making sure they have what they need, making sure I can be helpful. Sometimes that means staying the hell out of the way, right? And just making sure that folks feel good in our office and feel like they're they have that sense of achievement and that accomplishment and those extra hours that they're going to put in that night. And the extra, yes, I can do in half an hour more, right? Just that's been my tradition now. And just really doing what I can to support my team. But your tradition is yours. Stick to that. Create your tradition. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran elections for 13 years and therefore I was in the office. And usually, because I also had 2 babies in the amount of time that I was there. So once I had babies and, they wanted to see me, my mom would usually bring them in because she usually would come stay for usually a few weeks around elections because of how much I was working. And so she would usually bring them in, and I have lots of little photos of them coming to visit on election night. And then I would stay. I usually brought clothes and stay for a few days, usually. And then the last 2 years, running the National Vote at Home Institute, we have a national war room that we have open every national kind of election, or if there's a lot of elections on primary days going on, we do that. So we're gonna have that going again. I also serve on the National Task Force of Election Crises, and also the National Task Force for Election Integrity. And it's pretty cool. There's a lot of former governors, former Congress folks. Madeleine Albright serves with me on one of those task forces. And so there's sort of a lot of different connected war rooms happening with that this year. So I'm going to be tied up with my team. We're gonna kind of do a bubble scenario, and then I'll be connected with all of these different national task forces. And there's a lot of TV and kind of reporter stuff that is being scheduled, because I think there's a lot of people that need people that understand this process to explain it to others. So likely that's what I'll be doing, and unfortunately probably won't get a lot of eyes on my kids that day, but we're going to go to Hawaii after all this is done. So.
Nice. Nice. Well, thank you guys so much. And Amber, there's some compliments on the artwork on your walls as well
Oh,
going
cool.
on behind you. And I would like to compliment Paul on the bottled Coca-Cola you've been drinking. I decided I wanted one now. So I'm going to toss that back over to Naomi. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and she'll close us out.
Thank you, Lindsay. And I just echo her sentiment as well as the sentiments in the chat. We're so thankful that you both took time out of your extremely busy schedules to join us and to talk through the journey that Vote by Mail has gone through in Denver and Colorado, and what the future looks like, and just all of the work that you all are leading to ensure that everyone has equitable access to be able to vote in this election and future elections, as well as those to pass. And it's just been such an honor to learn. I feel like we've been educated, and now we've been given this opportunity to help spread the word around how this mechanism of voting is safe and reliable, and the benefits that we are all so privileged to be able to experience. So again, just want to thank you both. I know you probably are going to have to go back to work this evening, but want to share in true Junior League tradition, we will be sending you one of our cookbooks. So when the election is over and you have some time to decompress, when Amber's back from Hawaii, you guys can maybe cook something that you like out of our cookbook. So thank you again for all that you do. We're so thankful for your service and leadership.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. This is so amazing. You guys I just admire Junior League so much, and so many good friends on here. So good to see you all, and thanks for having us.
It's super awesome. And I forgot to mention, we're going to have a Halloween sticker. So those of you who want to vote early and not have to wait all the way to November 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, if you want to vote on Halloween, we're going to hook you up with a special sticker, but you got to turn that ballot in early. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Sounds awesome.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks.
All right. All right, everyone. So we're bringing in the public policy section of this general meeting, and I'm so excited to turn things over to Caitlin LaLuz, our esteemed member of the Public Policy Council's Events Committee, to provide you all with the training in a moment. So Caitlin, it is all yours.
Hello, thank you. Wow, such amazing speakers today. I'm gonna touch on some of the stuff we've already heard tonight, but as Naomi said, my name is Caitlin LaLuz. I am one of the Public Policy Events Committee members, and I'm a first-year active. Today, our training in a moment is make a plan to vote. So raise your hand or put an emoji in the chat if you have already voted. Let's see the overachievers. Come on, anyone? Awesome, good job. Nice job, guys. Well, for those of you who haven't voted yet, maybe you're just not sure about the issues going on, tonight is our night. So let's get ready and prepare and plan for how we're going to vote. So first, we need to figure out what exactly is on the ballot and educate yourself on the issues. Luckily for you, a tradition of the Public Policy Council is Wine and Ballots. Wine and Ballots is a review of ballot measures with an impartial analysis to help our members understand both the purpose and the effect of ballot measures before they cast their votes. This event was recently held just last week on October 13th. If you didn't get to attend the event, get out your phone, scan the QR code right here on this slide so you can get linked directly to the recording. The link was also sent out to all members via email for you to watch on your own time. So if you can't save the link tonight, don't worry, it's in your email. This year's program included not only a presentation from Count Me in Colorado on all ballot measures, but also focused ballot measure discussion on Proposition 118, Paid Family and Medical Leave Insurance Program, and Amendment B, the Gallagher Amendment Repeal and Property Tax Assessment Rates Measure. We picked Proposition 118 because the state legislature discussed a bill last session on paid family leave that unfortunately did not pass, but that the Public Policy Council for Junior League had previously supported. Paid family medical leave ties into our league mission of supporting women, children, and families. We also did a deep dive on Amendment B to continue our previous league trainings on TABOR, the Taxpayer Bill of Rights law, done as the focus of the October 2019 GM. A repeal of the Gallagher Amendment would impact property taxes collected and affect funding for schools, which also ties back to our league interest in early childhood education. The Wine and Ballots event had such an amazing turnout of 265 people who attended, not including the friends and family members who also attended with watch parties and that were held by our members. It was so much fun to see everyone, as you can see on this slide, with their friends, family, drinks, and even their furry friends. After you have educated yourself on the various issues on the ballot, it's time to plan out exactly how you are going to vote. On this next slide, you can scan the QR code here to get all the information on logistics like where to vote, how to vote, and more at govotecolorado.org. Make sure to read your ballot carefully, fill it out in accordance with your preferences on the issues, and then sign it as discussed earlier. To submit your ballot, you can mail it in or drop it off at a ballot drop box. If you're planning on mailing your ballot, make sure you place it in the mail by Monday, October 26th. That's this coming Monday. So make sure if you are mailing it in that you put it in the mail no later than this coming Monday. This is to ensure that your ballot is received before Election Day on November 3rd and your vote counts. Postmarks, as discussed earlier, do not count in Colorado. So if you mail it after then and it's received on the 4th, then it's not going to count. So make sure if you are last minute voting and it's already after the 26th of October that you go on to govotecolorado.org and either find your polling place to go vote in person or find a nearby ballot drop-off. Colorado also provides a ballot tracking system. So some of you who have already voted may have seen this in your email, but you can monitor and confirm that your ballot has been accepted. So it's really awesome and exciting to be able to still have that voting experience where you actually can confirm, I voted, I'm done, I did it, and you can share that on social media. Now, if you have any additional questions that weren't covered tonight about voting, there are ample resources and information on the website govotecolorado.org. So go check that out. Now, my challenge to you, whether you have voted already or not, is to go help a friend or family member make their plan to vote. All right. Thank you for your time, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Caitlin. Ladies, we've heard our charge again. And also, I want to just say happy birthday, Caitlin. Let's everyone wish her a happy birthday in the chat. We're so thankful that you spent your birthday with us and provided such rich resources and trainings for our members. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, everyone. So before I turn things back over to Melanie and some of the other leaders within the league, I just want to thank you all for joining us this evening. Note that we are going to be sending out a survey. So please take some time to fill that out. We love to gauge how this opportunity was, this training was, and the things that you've learned. So look out for that and please complete it as you have time. We really hope that this was a great space for you all to learn and feel empowered to vote. This is just a critical time and we've learned how impactful voting can be, and just urge you all to take charge and act on the things that we've talked about this evening. Lastly, I just want to show nothing but love for our Public Policy Council. Our members have been working nonstop to ensure that this event, Wine and Ballots, the league's engagement and Moto Vote have been impactful and really helped us in moving the needle. So I just want to give all of the Public Policy Council members some much needed love and just thank you all for your leadership and your work over the last couple of months because I know it's been busy. I also want to thank our partners with the General Membership Committee, the communications team, and all of our other partners within the league to ensure that we've had the means to elevate these great opportunities to engage our membership. So that's all I have, and I'm going to turn things back over to Melanie.
Awesome. Thanks, Naomi. And I would just want to echo and amplify everything that you just said. I'm just so proud of the work that you all are doing. And our goal in these general meetings is to always have really high caliber speakers and meaningful training opportunities for our members. And I think that you all are just knocking it out of the park and setting the bar high. So just really, really appreciative of all the work that you're doing to educate us and to help us get involved and to really be civic leaders. It's such an important part of our mission. All right, everyone. So to wrap us up this evening, we have a few really important, always very important, and tonight is no exception, league updates for you. And so we are going to start off with an update from Tiffany Dynas, our nominating committee chair. So Tiffany, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Melanie. Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany Dynas. I'm the nominating chair, and I think I have a slide. So it is time for nominating season. The applications are open and you can nominate, which I am just stoked about because obviously, as you saw tonight and in all your other council meetings and committee meetings, we have phenomenal women who are leaders in our league. And now is a time for people to take that next step and think about if they're ready to be on the board of directors. So the first step in that process is a nomination, and you can either self-nominate or you can nominate a fellow junior leaguer who is an active member and who is in good standing. The process to nominate is going on between October 5th and November 20th. So there is time to think about this, to connect. I would highly encourage you, if this is something you're interested in, to please go to our nominating page. You'll see at the bottom, the fourth bullet, the link to get there. That will give you a wealth of information of what positions are on the board of directors, testimonies from our current members that are direct VPs and VPEs. You'll also have the opportunity to see what the process looks like and have a ton of questions answered for you. This year, because it's a COVID year, it's a special year for nominations. And in the interview process, we will be doing them all virtual. And those interviews will take place January 3rd through the 10th to give you a timeline. And because they're virtual, we wanted to create an FAQ to give you a bunch of information about what's changed, but we also want to really increase our transparency and openness about the process. And so there's a bunch of information that applies to every year we do nominating, but in addition to that, what's going to make this year unique and special. As you're going through this, feel free to reach out to VPs and VPEs to learn more about their roles and what it looks like to hold these positions. You may also, for any questions you have, reach out to me, which there's an email address on the screen that you can send any questions you have. We would love to hear from you and connect and really think through what is your best next step in the process of being a leader in Junior League. So thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. And I put this in the chat too. We also added the link to the Your Member homepage now under news. So it should be front and center, or you can navigate, of course, following this. We want to give you all the ways to make it easy for you to find it. Really encourage anyone, again, to nominate someone else, nominate yourself. It's such an amazing process, amazing group, of course, to be a part of. So I encourage you all to think about that if that's part of your leadership track in the league. All right, next, we're going to turn it over to Laura Dietrich, our VP of Membership, to provide some updates from Membership Council.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura, and I first want to thank Public Policy for such a wonderful GM. You women did a wonderful job organizing this. And I am here to talk a little bit about Fall Lottery. But the first thing I wanted to do is, first of all, welcome our newest members, our provisionals. I haven't had too much of an opportunity to do that, and I'm sure there are many of you on the line. So thank you so much for being here. And I also wanted to welcome our transfer members. And then we're going to dive right in and talk about lottery. And we can hang out on this slide for a moment because I'm going to say the most important part of what I want to talk about now, and then we'll go into the slides. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge to all of our members, with the one exception of our newest members, that I know that none of you planned for COVID or signed up for your particular roles that you are in, knowing what was to come. And it's important to me to just say that I'm right here with you. I also didn't know this was coming when I was stepping into this board role. And I can feel the overwhelm and the confusion and the exhaustion. I'm there with you, but I can also feel the joy and the sense of accomplishment as we are having so much success this year together as a team. And on honestly, I've never been so proud to be a part of this organization. And I just want to thank you so much for hanging in here with us and staying here and being a part of it. So thank you. Okay, so fall lottery, we have our dates here. It opens November 3rd, closes November 20th, and then you'll be notified of the position you receive by December 14th. A couple things about lottery. It does not matter if you fill out your online form November 3rd at 8 a.m. or November 20th at 9 p.m. I never recommend waiting till the last minute in case your internet goes out or something, but we don't look at when you submit your choices. So that is not something to worry about. This year, something new with Fall Lottery is that we've added a leadership registration questionnaire. So typically that's only part of spring leadership registration. And in the fall, if you wanted a leadership position, you just kind of clicked on it. And last year we recognized that we really want to learn about you as we're making the leadership decisions. So that will be available for you to fill out. I like how Tiffany talked about transparency. I have also realized over the years that some people don't know about how leadership decisions are made. How does somebody become a step-up chair? How does someone become a chair? And those final decisions are made by the vice president-elect and the vice president of the council where that committee falls. So I always urge our members, if you are interested in being a leader in the league, to talk to your chair, to talk to the VPE or VP of that council. We want to hear from you and we want to know that you're interested in leadership and help you get there. My third topic is about holding over. So a holdover is somebody who keeps the same position from one year to the next. And the most frequent question is, if I'm holding over on my committee, do I need to go through lottery? And that answer is 100% yes, yes, yes. You let your chair know that you are interested in holding over, and then you still go through lottery and you select that position as your #1 choice. An example of a holdover is a Loves committee member was a committee member this year, and they'd like to be a committee member next year as well. A non-example is a Loves committee member is a committee member this year and wants to be the step-up chair next year. So that's not holding over, that's switching positions. So a holdover is being in the exact same position. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Thank you. I'm not going to go through this. I mostly just want everyone to know it exists. This is our timeline for the entire year. We're pretty organized over on membership, thank goodness. But these are just all the dates for when things are opening and closing, and they are accessible to all our members. Also, I'm just going to forewarn you, there's going to be a couple slides coming up about these different positions available for Fall Lottery. I'm briefly going to talk about them, but where you'll really get the information is when our brochure goes live, and that's going to be here in the next week or so. It's actually in my inbox for final review now. And I just want to thank our membership coordinator co-chairs who completely revamped the brochure. So it's like really pretty and a little easier to read. And that's Claire Juno and Anne Fritzy. So thank you for doing that. And next slide, please. So our first committee that is in Fall Lottery is Loves, Leaders United in Volunteer Service. And this is really funny because that's not my slide that I made, but that's okay. Those are really nice pictures and I'm not sure where that came from. This looks like my slide though. Okay, so something really neat about Loves is that this year we had huge participation with 260 members showing up to either do socially distant shifts or drop-off shifts. Another important thing to note is that we already know when next year Loves is, and it's going to be Saturday, September 28th. So it's a good thing to have in your calendar if this is a committee you want to join. Next slide, please. There's some pictures I put in. Loves was really awesome this year. Love the pictures. Next slide, please. And then this is more information about the Loves placement. Again, I'm not going to read all of this. This is a large committee, which is an important thing to note. It has about 20 to 25 committee members. So if you're looking for a larger committee, this is a great one to be on. And again, all of this information will be in the brochure. And the placement begins in February. Our next fall placement, you guys are awesome, is provisional recruitment. We can move on. And we can actually go to the next one too. So provisional recruitment is in charge of all our outreach to prospective members. This is a really neat committee to be on right now because it's a large part of our strategic plan to diversify our recruitment efforts and just make our league a lot more inclusive to women all over Denver. This is also a year-round placement now. So you have a chance to hop on this committee in the fall or in the spring, which is a nice change. Next slide, please. Here's our information on PRC, a little bit smaller of a committee, about 8 members. Next slide, please. And then Holiday Mart, there are our precious reindeer volunteers, love them. Next slide, please. So Holiday Mart has several committees. We have steering, merchant, operations, special events, and ticketing and staffing. This placement also begins in March. So all the fall placements start in around February or March. So you still get a full league year. It's just on a slightly different calendar, which is also super important to note that you're still getting that, 12 months of junior league that people in the spring get. Next slide, please. And then these co-chairs are amazing. They asked me to put their email addresses here. So if anyone is interested in attending a steering Holiday Mart committee to learn more about it, you're definitely welcome to log in on Zoom. And I'm sure that all the other committee co-chairs feel that way too. If you're interested in something, reach out, let the leaders know and join. Like, we want you to be a part of this. And please do come to Holiday Mart this year. Next slide, please. So it's important to my VPE and I that you have a wonderful year. This is Amy Marty Conrad. She'll be the VP next year. And I know I'm real short on time, but I wanted to do one more thing. This is back by popular demand. One of our end of the year award recipients actually requested that I say this, and I will do basically anything for our award winners because they're so amazing. But last year I talked about how I will help solve your problems. It's really important to me that you all have a wonderful year, especially this year. And so last year at the GM in person, I told a little story about how the night before, or maybe 2 days before, it had been September 13th. And I learned that that's a really popular day to go to a tattoo parlor and get a tattoo or a piercing. I had no clue. So my best guy friend said to me, I want to go pierce my ears for September the 13th. And I thought it was hilarious. So I went with him, and it turned out that all the ear piercers were booked or had already gone home for the night. And he was devastated. And we were driving back to my house, and I looked at him, and he just looked so forlorn looking out the window and so sad. And we pulled up to my house, and I looked at him and I said, I'll pierce your ears. I'm just going to do it. And I'm not good with my hands. I shouldn't be piercing anyone's ears or doing artwork. Any of that, can't do it. And so I pierced his ears, and it went fine. Turns out I might have a hidden talent. So I told this story at the GM to promise you all I will help put you in a good place, help you have a good year, find solutions. And then after I left the GM, an additional part of this story is I walked out, and the parking lot was like paid parking where you go out and you insert your ticket and you pay the $2 for parking. So, I'm pulling up, getting ready to leave. And a sweet woman in the car behind me gets out, comes up to my window and knocks on it and says, I'm so embarrassed. I switched purses this morning and I don't have my wallet. Can you pay for my parking and I'll Venmo you? And I said, well, I can pay for your parking. You don't have to Venmo me. And she said, you pierce people's ears and pay for parking. And I will just never forget that story. And it's so wonderful being here with you all. And truly, so I put my number here. You can clearly look me up in the directory, but it's right here. You put me in your cell phone. never a bother to hear from our members. I love talking to you and helping and just having a good time with you. So thank you. And sorry I went over on time.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. But I can attest that she is not kidding nor exaggerating. She really does love to hear from you. If you need absolutely anything, please reach out and guarantee that she will help solve problems and get you in the right place in the league if you need that. So thank you, Laura, for all those updates. All right, so Lindsay wasn't able to be here tonight, our VP of fundraising. So I'm just going to give a quick update about Holiday Mart, building off what you just heard. So I don't know if we have, it's just, this is the only slide we have. Is that right, Naomi? Yeah, okay, perfect. So Holiday Mart, we wanted to just share and make sure folks knew, if you haven't already seen your tickets arriving in the mail, just to make sure that you know that we are moving forward with a COVID adapted version of Holiday Mart this year. The dates are November 13th through 15th. That committee has been working tirelessly these last few months to figure out how we can host a hybrid method of this and to do this in a safe way that keeps everyone safe and brings a little bit of normalcy, I think, to all of our league lives and our holiday seasons. So we are going to be hosting a scaled back event. We are down in Park Meadows, there at the Marriott. There will be strict capacity numbers at all times. And so you can reserve a shopping time ahead of time so that you can avoid having to wait. But with the staggered entry, if you don't reserve a time, you may have to wait in line. So not required, still come, but just know that there might be a line if you don't reserve a time. And then we're also within the space, everything will be social distanced, all of the vendors, all of the shopping, masks will be required, kind of all the guidelines and measures in place to make sure that our in-person shoppers can have a safe experience. And there also will be a virtual opportunity as well to participate that'll be open through the end of the year, so through December 31st. So lots of ways that you can get involved and support Holiday Mart this year. Please do that. Please do find safe ways to hand out your tickets. Make sure that folks that you're giving those to know that we are taking all safety precautions into play, and that we're hoping to host a fabulous weekend for folks to get your holiday shopping done. Great question about the virtual option. I don't remember offhand the exact date, but it's sometime right around when Holiday Mart is happening. It's either that weekend or right after, and then it will be open through December 31st. All right. Perfect. So our next announcement, final announcement of the evening, last but certainly not least, we want to talk about Actives Plus, and we have our chair, Vanessa Brown, here with us.
Hi, sorry, my internet is saying that I have an unstable connection. So if you don't hear me, that's what's happening.
Okay.
So
Got it.
Sorry. So you can go ahead and move it to the slide that I gave you, but I just wanted to go over a couple quick things. We're in the process right now of doing our applications for Actives Plus. So just wanted to let y'all know. We are a part of the training council, and Actives Plus is just a placement in addition to your placement. It's for people who want a little something extra besides their placement, something where they can kind of socialize, meet up with women that have similar interests to them. And we're going into our, I think it's our third year. I don't know, don't quote me because I'm moving and I'm a mess. So, but it's open to all active members. So unfortunately, no provisionals, but we'll see y'all next year. And like I said, our application process is happening. It's been open since the 6th. You can find the application on the homepage of the website. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to fill out. And right now we're currently gearing up for our kickoff event, which is supposed to be November the 17th. And it still will be that day. We're just having to make some adjustments, probably because I don't think that we can do it in person, but that's fine because it'll still be really awesome. And we just want to make sure that it's going to be safe and enriching for everybody this year. But I kind of think that the general theme of the year anyways is just being able to adapt and kind of figure out how to meet our members where they are, and we'll be doing that. And then as far as the event itself, like I said, we've got a plan, but we've also got a contingency plan. So we might be going with that here soon. After the kickoff event, though, everyone would be assigned to advisors that you would meet up with once a month in your groups. And between January and May, you would kind of have your meetings where you discuss specialized specific topics and kind of delve into it with your group members. And then at the end of the year, we would have a celebration. And we've got an amazing group of advisors this year. We're all really excited to meet y'all. We're all really excited to jump into the Actives Plus year. Again, we don't start until January, but our application process is now. So if you want to join, please apply on the homepage. And if you have any questions for me, I'm Vanessa Brown. I just kicked that thing. I'm Vanessa Brown. That is my email down there. You can text me or email me. It's all going to be on the in the website, but that's all. I'm always really fast. So back to you, Melanie.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks for being with us in the middle of a move. I know how chaotic that is. We're happy to have you. And I've heard nothing but amazing things about Actives Plus. So definitely encourage folks to get involved with that. Just a couple of kind of final housekeeping pieces. One is if you didn't do it at the beginning and you haven't yet throughout the program, please make sure that you update your name on Zoom to reflect your JLD member name so that we can assign you credit. You can do that by clicking in the top right-hand corner of your face or of the box where your name is, and little dots will come up. You can right click there and it'll give you the option to rename. You can also go to the participants list and right click on your name under more, and it'll give you the chance there as well. That'll be the easiest way for our GM committee to be able to track everyone who was here and make sure that you get credit. And if you need to or not able to update your name, then you can email the GM committee as well. And then last thing is that we do have an evaluation for you this evening. Your feedback is so greatly valuable to us in planning general meetings and Public Policy Council and planning their training opportunities. The link is in the chat right now. If folks want to hop on over there, I think it's just a couple of quick questions and fill that out, and it'll also be coming to your inboxes as a follow-up to this meeting. So please make sure to take a couple seconds to respond to that. We would love, love, love to hear from you. So with that, Naomi, Jody, anything that we've missed?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think you covered it all.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to our GM committee. You're so adaptable. You're just making it happen this year. Thanks to Public Policy for bringing us great content. And thank you to all of you for being here, for everything that you're doing for the league this year. It is so, so appreciated. So everybody have a good night. Stay warm, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.